Today we're going to be setting up a new fancy goldfish tank. It's going to be a simple setup, but we'll be making use of some live plants, and most importantly, it will be easy to maintain. And these are the 3 recently adopted goldfish that we'll be calling the new tank setup home. And this is the tank that we'll be using. It's 160 litres or 42 gallons. It's 1 metre in length, 40 centimetres deep, 40 centimetres high, and this is going to be a great starter tank for 3 fancy goldfish and should last them for a good couple of years. So in preparation for this setup, I have painted the back of the tank black because, well, you can't go wrong with a black background. It hides all your wires and cables at the back of your tank, and yeah, I just think it looks good. This was a fairly simple little task. I just used a standard water-based emulsion that you use for your interior walls and applied using a mini foam roller. I ended up doing 4 coats in the end, could have probably gotten away with 3, but just thought I'd do 1 more for luck, and I speeded up the process by using the old Dyson hairdryer in between coats. But yeah, I'm really pleased with it and it's come out really nice. So moving on to the actual setup and the fun part, as you can see, I've got a lot of the stuff that I'll need for this build laid out on the table here. But the first thing I'm going to be doing is to be adding some root tabs, because as I mentioned earlier, I am going to be including some live plants in this setup. However, there's only going to be a couple of plants that are actually planted into the substrate, and they are going to be going in the back left hand corner. So I'm going to start by adding some root tabs into that back left hand corner, and then I'm going to add a little bit of substrate just to hold them into place. So as you can see, we've got the 4 root tabs in there with the sand just holding it in place. I'm going to add a little bit more sand over the top of that now just to make sure they don't get moved, and then I'll add the rest of the substrate in. So the substrate I have chosen for this setup is a coarse sand, and this particular one is called Samoa coarse sand. And the reason I've chosen this is because a larger gravel, like pea gravel, is generally not recommended for goldfish, as there has apparently been instances of goldfish choking on it. I have never experienced this myself, but for this reason, sand or fine gravel is seen to be a better choice. I did decide against a fine sand though, as vacuuming fine sand can sometimes be a bit of a challenge, and being a goldfish tank, gravel vacuuming the tank will need to be done regularly. Okay, so there is the substrate in, and yeah, got a sort of a reasonable layer in there, and what I've got it doing is just sloping towards that back left hand corner, because as I mentioned, that is where the plants are going to be planted. So now that's in, I think the next thing I want to do is to add a heater. Now you may be thinking to yourself, bro, goldfish don't need a heater, and this is true, they aren't essential. However, this room does get quite cold in the winter, so I think a heater set to around 21 degrees Celsius or 70 degrees Fahrenheit will be of benefit. Plus, slightly warmer temperatures can help fancy goldfish with their digestion, which in turn can help prevent swim bladder issues that fancy goldfish are known to be prone to. Warmer temperatures are also apparently good for the immune system of goldfish. So for all these reasons, and to keep a nice stable temperature, I decided to use a heater. Okay, so that is the heater in, looking cushy. Next up, hardscape. And luckily for me, I've got a fair bit of hardscape to choose from. I've got a fair bit of driftwood, I believe that is Mopani driftwood. Got a couple of pieces of that, but I am going to keep things nice and simple, and I'm just going to use 1 single piece of driftwood, and this is that piece down here. Again, this is Mopani driftwood, and the reason I've got it in there, I've got it soaking to try and get rid of all of the tannins out of it. It also gave me a chance to check that it had no effect on pH. What I did was I tested the water before the wood went in, and then 24 hours later, and it had no effect on pH, so we're all good to use that. So I'm going to get this table cleared. This tank here actually is the tank that the 3 goldfish were living in when I picked them up. They gave me the tank as well. It's actually only 24 litres, which is like 6.5 gallons, so not really big enough for 3 fancy tail goldfish, but you know, we've all been there. So I'll get that cleared, we'll get the driftwood up there, and we'll add some Anubias to it, I think. So, Mopani driftwood, what are you saying? So, the plan with this bad boy, get some Anubias attached to it. It's actually got a hole, let me just show you this in more detail here. It's actually got a hole that goes all the way through it, and I mean, that's just screaming out for a piece of Anubias, isn't it? So we'll get a piece of Anubias jammed in the top there, And I think we'll try and get a piece there, maybe something over that side. I've got some super glue, although I don't think there's hardly any in there. Bought some new stuff, cannot find it anywhere. Hopefully there's enough in there though. So I've got some Anubias currently in the tank with the goldfish, so we'll get that out and see if we can attach it to the Mopani. Okay, so that is the Anubias that I was talking about, so we'll get that out and we'll have a little play around with the Mopani. Okay, so here is our Anubias, and Anubias is a great beginner plant and is also one of the few plants that goldfish won't eat. And it is an epiphyte plant. Now, an epiphyte plant means that you don't plant it in the substrate, but instead you attach it to hardscape such as driftwood. Now, you can do this by sort of jamming it into crevices, but if you can't find any crevices to jam it into, you can also use super glue. And as long as it's the cyanoacrylate instant contact super glue, it is completely aquarium safe. So I'm going to have a little play around and we'll see what we can come up with. So that is all of our Anubias attached. The top one I did manage to just wedge in that hole, and the bottom two I used a little bit of super glue, so hopefully they have all attached nicely. Now, when you are working with aquatic plants out of water, don't forget to keep them hydrated with a bit of a spray every now and then. But now that's all sorted, I just wanted to move on to this sponge filter. Now, this is an Aquarium Co-op sponge filter, medium, which I'm going to be using as a bit of a secondary filtration. My main filtration is going to be a canister filter, but you always want to have an air stone going, so you might as well put that air stone in a sponge filter. And if you have a little look here, it fits perfectly in that little gap there. So now that's all sorted, we can get it into the tank. Okay, so we are starting to look pretty good. I mean, the colours and the textures on that piece of wood are pretty amazing. And the Anubias is looking very nice. Sponge filter fitted in a treat. It is a big piece, I will say it is a big piece, and it does take up a fair old bit of space, but we can always swap it out for something a bit smaller as the goldfish get bigger. But for now, that is going to work very nicely, and I think it's time to get some water in. Okay guys, so we are all filled up and we are looking good. I did have to use a bucket to fill it up because my hosepipe is currently out of action. So it took a little while, but we got there in the end. I also added the air line to the sponge filter, and I also added a air stone to the sponge filter, so we should get some nice fine bubbles coming out of that. So what I want to do next is to add some dechlorinator to the water, turn the heater on, and turn the sponge filter on. So let's do that now. Okay guys, so we're looking pretty good, but it's time to get that back left-hand corner planted up. That's the corner where we put the root tabs in right at the very start, and the plant that I've got planned to go in there is the Crinum calamastradum. And I chose that plant because it's a pretty cool plant that goldfish don't eat. Unfortunately, none of my local fish stores seem to have it in, so I've had to order it on eBay, and it's going to be in a couple of days. So I'll see you in a couple of days with a cheeky little unboxing. Okay guys, so it is now a couple of days later and the Crinum has arrived. So let's get it open. It has been pretty chilly, so I am a little bit worried about how it may have fared, but hopefully it'll be alright. Whilst I open this guys, if you are enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that like button, and if you want to see more content like this, maybe think about hitting that subscribe button. Okay, so it's looking alright. It's quite small, but it looks like it's made it here well. So there we go, guys, a little crinum. So I'm going to go and give that a quick little rinse off, and then we'll get it in the tank. Okay guys, so I've given the crinum a bit of a rinse off, and I've got it just sort of like floating in the top here. You may notice that the tank is looking a little bit cloudy. I think that's just a bit of an initial bacteria bloom, very normal with a new setup, nothing to worry about. Now, I've never kept crinum calamastratum before, so I've done a little bit of research, and basically the main thing I think you need to do is to make sure you do not bury it too deep. It's got like a bit of a bulb on the bottom of it, and apparently you want to have that like only half in the substrate. So I think it's going to have a bit of a tendency to float off. So I've got a couple of largish rocks that I'm going to use. Well, I might not need them, but I think I probably will, to just sort of like hold it in place. So that will stop it floating off, and it will also stop the goldfish from digging it up when they go in there. And we can get rid of them at a later date once it's rooted in properly. So I'm going to get it in now, and we'll see how it looks. Okay guys, so after a lot of faffing about off camera, I have finally got it into a position that I'm happy with. As you can see, I've got it sort of like wedged between them two rocks there. Would quite like to add one more rock just to the front there, just to really make sure that the goldfish don't dig it up. But yeah, I'm happy with that. Doesn't look amazing right now, but it will do when it grows in. It should sort of like grow really quite big and sort of like drape up over the top of the water there. So now that's in, the only thing left to do before we add the goldfish is to add the main filtration, which is going to be a Fluval 207 canister filter, which is currently running on another tank. So I'm going to go and grab that now, and we'll get it hooked up. Okay, so here is the cycled Fluval 207 canister filter. I've got it pretty much set up how it comes. The only things I am going to be adding is an aquarium co-op pre-filter sponge, which will just be added to the inlet pipe there. I'm also going to be adding some carbon, and that's going to help take care of any leftover tannins from the driftwood. And I've also got some filter floss just to take care of any fine particles. So we'll get all that put together and get it hooked up, and then finally we can get the fish in. Okay guys, so the canister filter is up and running. You can see the ripples on the surface of the water there. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to add the pre-filter sponge to the intake there. Fortunately, I think if I put the sponge onto there, it would just take up a little bit too much room, and the fish might not be able to do circuits, which I'd quite like for them to be able to do. What I have done though is tested the water, and that is all good. And so it is now finally time to get these guys acclimated to their new tank. Okay guys, so acclimation is complete. Temperatures are matching. I have also reduced the lighting down to the lowest setting on the old Fluval Aqua Sky there. That's just to reduce the stress on the fish. So it's now time to get these guys in. Okay, so it is now a couple of days later. Thought I'd give the fish a little bit of time to settle in and the filter a chance to clear up the water. And yeah, it's all looking good. Goldfish have been doing well. As you can see, we have one Blackmore that I've been calling Mr. Moore, and two fantails that do still need names. So if anyone has any ideas, whack them down in the comments. Now, I have been doing daily water changes of about 40%, I'd say, and I'll continue to do that for a few more days, just whilst the beneficial bacteria gets properly established. Obviously, we did add the cycle canister filter, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it contains enough beneficial bacteria to break down the waste of 3 goldfish. So regular testing of your water parameters and doing extra water changes for the first couple of weeks of a new setup is a good idea. So further maintenance going forward should be nice and easy. Obviously, water changes will continue. Long term, hopefully a 50% water change a week should suffice, and I'll probably gravel vac once a week as well, which will be nice and easy due to the hardscape being easily removable. Obviously I won't gravel that too near the planted back left hand corner, but any waste that lands in that area should just break down and become food for the crinum. But I think that is going to bring us to the end of this one. If you've got any questions, drop them in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.